Hello everyone, I am Jyoti Bhom and in this video we are going to discuss the topic Introduction to Petrology. So the petrology literally means the study of rocks. Petro means rock and logos means study. So petrology deals with the study of rocks. The subject matter of petrology comprises the origin, association, occurrence, mineral composition, chemical composition, texture, structure, physical properties, etc. of rocks. The petrography deals with the descriptive part of rocks and petrogeny deals with the mode of formation of rocks. These two together make up petrology. So as details of strength, durability, color, appearance and workability of rocks are of primary interest to a civil engineer so as to utilize them in proper way. So these inherent physical properties of rocks are mainly dependent on characters of the constituent minerals. Now we will study about the rock cycle. So generally there are three groups of rocks: igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks and metamorphic rocks. So these three groups of rocks gives place to one another in nature. So how that we are going to see in this rock cycle. So here we can see the igneous rocks. In the diagram we can see the three category of rocks: igneous rocks, metamorphic rocks and sedimentary rocks. So here we can see igneous rocks. So as a consequence of weathering, they give rise to a sedimentary rocks. Okay, so under the influence of metamorphism they also give rise to the metamorphic rocks. Okay, so here the metamorphic rocks formed by the igneous rocks are called as orthometamorphic rocks. Now when we go to the sedimentary rocks, so when sedimentary rocks buried to a great depth due to some tectonic activity, they form magma on melting and subsequently solidify to form igneous rocks. And under the influence of metamorphism, it changes over to the metamorphic rocks. So here the metamorphic rocks formed from the sedimentary rocks are called as parametamorphic rocks. And when we go through the metamorphic rocks, like the igneous rocks, on weathering, it gives rise to the sediments which form sedimentary rocks later, and the metamorphic rock, like the sedimentary rocks, when buried to a great depths due to the tectonic activity, will melt and give rise to magma from which igneous rocks are formed. Okay, so therefore one group of rocks gives rise to another in nature due to geological reasons, and this phenomena is called as rock cycle. So now we will discuss about the classification of rocks. So the rocks are classified based on three parameters: the geological classification, physical classification of rocks and chemical classification of rocks. So in this video we are going to focus on the geological classification of rocks. So based on geological classification, the rocks are classified into three types, or we can say three groups: the igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks and metamorphic rocks. Again, igneous rocks are classified into two groups: intrusive igneous rocks and extrusive igneous rocks. Again, intrusive igneous rocks are having two types: hypobasalt rock and plutonic rock, whereas extrusive igneous rock has a type volcanic rock. When we go to the sedimentary rocks are again classified into three different types: the clastic deposit, chemical deposit and organic deposit, whereas metamorphic rocks are divided into two types: the foliated metamorphic rock and non-foliated metamorphic rock. Okay, so this is the classification. Now we are going to see this all three groups of rocks, that is igneous rock, sedimentary rock and metamorphic rock, and their sub classification in detail. Now we will see the first geological classification of rock, that is igneous rock, or we can say as a igneous petrology. So the igneous rocks are formed by cooling and consolidation of molten rock matter called magma. And magmas are formed in huge quantities in the deeper parts of the earth's crust by melting of crystal rocks. So here the igneous rocks are classified into two main types: intrusive igneous rocks and extrusive igneous rocks. Again, intrusive igneous rocks are classified as hyperbasal rocks and plutonic rocks, whereas extrusive igneous rocks are classified as volcanic rocks. So first of all, we will see intrusive igneous rocks. So the magmas are formed in the deeper parts of the crust and rise towards the surface. But sometimes it may not find a thorough passage to the surface and may be stopped in its ascent after rising for some distance. It will then force its way into the weaknesses in crustal rocks and will cool inside the crust. So, rocks therefore cooling inside the crust are called intrusive rocks. So, here we can see some of the examples of the intrusive igneous rocks like diorite, granite, gabbro, pelmetite, etc. Then again, the intrusive igneous rocks are classified as hyperbasal rock and plutonic rock. Okay, so a part of the magma may rise higher up to intermediate depths as injections in cracks and fissures that do not reach the surface and cool as small bodies of igneous rock at intermediate depths. So these are called minor intrusions or hyperbasal rocks. And when a huge mass of magma is so intruded into a crystal rocks and cools as a huge mass at great depths, the resulting rock is called a major intrusion or plutonic rock because of the great depth at which it has been formed. The examples of plutonic rock are gabbro, pegmatite, etc. Then the second type of igneous rock is extrusive igneous rocks. So the magmas are formed in the deeper parts of the crust and rise towards the surface. If a rising magma finds a way to the surface through cracks and fissures in crustal rocks, it is outpoured through volcanoes as lava and cools at the surface. So rocks therefore formed by the cooling of magma on the surface are called as extrusive rocks. So the volcanic rocks are nothing but the volcanic rock is nothing but a type of extrusive igneous rock. So these rocks are formed due to cooling and solidification of lava erupted from volcanoes. Since lava cools down very fast at a very fast rate, and the grain size of the crystal formed in this rock is fine. The example of volcanic rock is basalt. Sedimentary rocks. So this is the second geological classification of rocks. So the sedimentary rocks are those which are formed out of sediments. The sediments are rock fragments which are products of weathering. Weathering has already been defined as a natural process of disintegration and decomposition of rocks. The sediments which have formed out of disintegration are loose materials of various sizes like clay, sand and pebbles. So these sediments on subsequent cementation or compaction or both give rise to hard cohesive sedimentary rocks. Since sediments represent secondary or derived materials from the pre-existing rocks, the rocks formed out of them are also called as secondary rocks. So here we can see the examples of sedimentary rocks. The sandstone, conglomerate, these are the examples of sedimentary rocks. So one of the type of sedimentary rock is clastic deposit rock. So these are mechanically formed rocks. These are formed due to the process of weathering, erosion, transportation and deposition of pre-existing rocks. So rhydaceous rocks, so if the grain sizes are more than 2 mm in diameter, then it is called as a rhydaceous rock. The arenaceous rock, so if the grain size is in between 1 and 2 mm, then it is called as arenaceous rocks. And argillaceous rocks, if the size of the particle is less than 1 mm in diameter, then it is called as argillaceous rocks. So here we can see the examples: conglomerate, quartz, sandstone, then shell and mudstone. So these are the examples of clastic deposit rock. Next is chemical deposit rock. So they are formed by precipitation, evaporation or crystallization from natural aqueous solution. So when water is rich in dissolved salt, evaporates and left behind minerals. Limestone can form when calcite minerals dissolved in lakes, sea and underground water comes out of solution and form crystal. So here are some examples of chemical deposit rock: limestone, halite. Here we can see in the diagrams. Then the third one is organic deposit rock. So the sedimentary rocks which are formed exclusively from remains of organisms like plant or animals deposited in a thick layer comes under the category of organic deposit rock. So now the third geological classification of rock is metamorphic rock. So the metamorphic rocks are geologically classified as one of the major groups of rocks which have been formed out of metamorphism of pre-existing igneous and sedimentary rocks. So the metamorphism is nothing but the alteration of the composition or structure of a rock by heat, pressure or other natural agency. So the terms orthometamorphic and parametamorphic rocks are applied to those rocks which have originated from igneous and sedimentary rocks respectively, as we have discussed in the rock cycle. So sometimes metamorphic rocks may also undergo metamorphism again. For example, due to metamorphism, slate changes to phyllite, which in turn may change first into mica schist and then a garnet gneiss. So when a rock undergoes metamorphism more than once, the process is called polymetamorphism. Now we will see the sub classification of metamorphic rock. So the first type is a foliated rocks. So the metamorphic foliation is refers to the parallelism of inequidimensional minerals which develops under the influence of pressure. More or less synonymous with foliation are the terms flow cleavage, then schistosity and slaty cleavage. The common foliated rocks in the order of increasing grain size are slate, phyllite, schist and gneiss. In general, this arrangement also refers to the increasing intensity of metamorphism. Non-foliated metamorphic rock. So the three important rock types coming under this category are quartzite, marble and hornfels. Of these, quartzite and marble are formed out of contact, dynamic or dynamothermal metamorphism, while hornfels is always the product of contact metamorphism. The quartzite and marble have been described later. So the hornfels is dense, fine grained and for a practical purpose can be called impure quartzite. In view of its vague nature and mineralogical variety, it is not much in use, though it is suitable for use as a crushed stone. Now we will see the physical classification of metamorphic rocks. So the first is stratified rocks. So these rocks are having a layered structure. They possess planes of stratification or cleavage. They can be easily split along these planes. The examples of stratified rocks are sandstones, limestones, slate, etc. Next is unstratified rocks. So these rocks are not stratified. They possess crystalline and compact grains. They cannot be split in the thin slab. And the examples of unstratified rocks are granite, trap, marble, etc. Now, based on the chemical classification, the metamorphic rocks are classified in different forms. So the first is siliceous rocks. So these rocks which have silica as the main constituent are called as siliceous rocks. The silica in the free state is called sand, and in combined state is silicate. The examples of siliceous rocks are granite, quartzite, sandstone, etc. Next is argillaceous rocks. So these rocks have clay or alumina as the main constituent. The examples of argillaceous rocks are kaolin, laterite, slate, etc. And the next is calcareous rocks. So these rocks have calcium carbonate or lime as their leading constituent. These rocks are readily acted upon by even dilute HCl. The examples are limestone and marble. So the next topic is forms of igneous rocks. So we are going to see those concordant and discordant forms of igneous rocks, so like sill, phacolith, lapolith, laccolith, batholith, dike, volcanic neck, etc. So we will see those one by one in detail. So first we will discuss about the sill. So the sills are similar to dikes in being sheet-like intrusive igneous bodies, but unlike dikes, these are concordant. Sills are formed due to the penetration of magma into bedding planes of country rocks, and their spreading capacity depends on the viscosity of magma, its temperature, and the weight of the overlying rocks. The basic magmas, being more fluid and more hot, usually occurs as sills. During sill formation, the ascending magma under great pressure pushes the overlying rocks upwards and accommodates itself by intruding and spreading along the weak bedding planes. The sills, being concordant, on consolidation look like beds themselves. The sills, which spread over large area, are generally thin and show uniform thickness. However, when traced through great lengths, they appear lenticular because they have tapering ends. So very often dikes and sills occur interconnected, one giving rise to another. A sill in such cases may spread along a bedding plane to some extent and then cut across a strata along a fracture or a crack as a dike and spread along another bedding plane parallelly. So sills are widely in their magnitude. Phacolith. So when thick sedimentary strata are folded along the crust and troughs, some empty spaces occur. These spaces are readily occupied if magnetic intrusions get access to them. On solidification, these appear as crescentic or lens-shaped across axial plane. These igneous bodies are called as phacoliths. These are concordant igneous rocks. The next form is lapolith. So this is a basin or saucer-shaped concordant intrusive igneous body of enormous size. Its top is nearly flat and the bottom is convex downwards. In this way, it is just a reverse of laccolith in shape. The lapolith is a very huge igneous body with a thickness approximately 1/10 to 1/20 of the diameter. The typical example of lapolith is Duluth Gabbro, which has a diameter of 150 miles and a maximum thickness of 50,000 feet. It is spread over an area of 15,000 square miles and is 50,000 cubic miles in volume. The lapoliths thus differ from laccoliths in their enormous size and shape. Another example of lapolith is in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, which is associated with the world's largest nickel sulfide deposits. Laccolith. So, like a sill, laccolith is also concordant igneous body. It has nearly flat bottom, but it is convex upward, that it is dome shaped. So when viscous magma is injected along a bedding plane, as it cannot spread easily, it pushes up the overlying rocks and piles up more at the place where it reaches the bedding plane and thins out away from it. So this gives a shape of an inverted bowl to the igneous body. The laccolith may also be formed when the supply of magma from beneath is more than that can be accommodated by lateral spreading. The laccolith is relatively a small igneous body. In the ground plan, it is either circular or elliptical depending upon whether the magma supply is from a cylindrical vent or an elongated fissure. So the laccoliths cause the overlying rocks folded upwards to take a dome-like shape. The next form of igneous rock is batholith. So these are the largest known intrusive igneous bodies characteristically occurring in mountain regions. The batholiths have sides sloping away from each other, which makes them larger and larger downwards, and they extend to very great depths. They occur as core bodies of fold mountains and appear elongated along mountain ranges. By virtue of their position, they appear as mountain roots. Their characteristic occurrence in orogenic belts indicates that the formation of batholiths is closely related to the mountain building process. So during this process, the cores are filled up by batholith masses. The batholiths grow up by making their way upwards by melting or stopping. So these are either granites or granodiorites in composition. The roof of batholith is very irregular and it has transgressive relationship with adjacent rock. The roof pendants, stalks, bosses and sunken blocks occur at the top portion of batholith, offering evidence of invasion of rocks by intrusion. Since these are deep seated, only very prolonged erosion exposes them on the surface. Next is dike. So dikes and sills are the most common forms of igneous rocks. The dikes are discordant, sheet-like, vertical or steeply inclined intrusive igneous bodies. Since they are sheet-like, they are narrow in width and have nearly uniform thickness, that is with parallel sides. They occur cutting across the bedding planes of the country rocks in which they are formed. So during the forceful upward journey, magma intrudes through the discordant fractures, cracks, joints, shear zones or any other weak planes or zones. The subsequent solidification of this gives rise to the dikes. Volcanic neck. So these are the igneous bodies which seal the vents and conduits of ancient volcanoes. These are somewhat cylindrical in shape and vary in diameter from a few hundred meters to a kilometer or more. The volcanic necks are circular or elliptical or irregular in plan and vary in diameter. These are filled with crystalline rock or fragmentary material or both. The volcanic necks are also called volcanic plugs. So we have seen all the geological classification of rocks. So now we will discuss the next topic, which is structure. So the structures and textures are physical features associated with the rocks. They are generally primary in nature, that is they occur along with the formation of rocks and are important because first, they contribute to the strength or weakness of rocks. Second, they serve as distinguishing features of rock groups. And also, third, they reveal the mode of origin of rocks concerned. So, the term structure used in this context is different from secondary geological structures like folds and faults, which also occur in rocks. The latter develop after the rocks have formed and as a consequence of the effect of tectonic forces on the rocks concerned. The term structure, as commonly used, refers to large scale features or field characters of rocks such as bedding or columnar structure or pillow structure, etc. So we will see the structures of different types of rocks one by one. So first we will see the structure of igneous rock, which is vesicular structure. So this vesicular structure is due to the porous nature commonly observed in volcanic rocks and is attributed to the different reasons. The magma is an intimate mixture of rock, melt and volatiles. The eruption of any volcano is accompanied by the flow of such melt on the surface. Then the gases being lighter move upward, and as they escape into the atmosphere and create empty cavities of various sizes and shapes near the surface of lava flow. So these cavities are called vesicles. Obviously vesicles will be more nearer to the top of lava flow and less at the base. So some of these cavities may be so large as to permit a man to go inside them. The acidic lava flows generally have larger cavities of irregular shapes, while the basic lava flows have smaller, more numerous and spherical vesicles. The next structure of igneous rock is amygdaloidal structure. So the vesicles which are empty to start within a vesicular structure are subsequently filled up by the deposits of surface waters and underground waters or hydrothermal solutions. So such infillings are called amygdals. So when empty cavities are filled with amygdals, the vesicular structure is called as amygdaloidal structure. So the common amygdaloidal minerals are zeolite, different forms of silica, calcite or heterogeneous hydrated ferromagnesium silicate. The Deccan Traps of India are a great storehouse of quartz, amethyst, agate, onyx and other varieties of chalcedony which occur as geodes and are used as gemstones. Next is columnar structure. So in this structure, the volcanic igneous rock appear to be made up of numerous parallel polygonal prismatic columns bundled together. So this is the result of contraction of lava during cooling. Suppose while flowing, lava occupies a depression on the earth's surface. Then cooling of such lava commences from the surface downwards and the development of centers of contraction takes place on the cooling surface. The lines joining these centers are the directions of greatest tension. Therefore, vertical cracks appear perpendicular to these lines. So these cracks intersect each other and produce parallel polygonal prismatic columns. The ideal conditions produce hexagonal columns, but irregularities in the spacing of cooling centers produce prisms of 3 or 4 or more number of sides. So this feature bears a resemblance to mud cracks. Next is sheet structure. So in this structure, the rocks appear to be made up of number of sheets because of the development of nearly horizontal cracks. So this is the effect of erosion over rocks formed at depth. Next is flow structure. So this structure refers to linear and nearly parallel features occurring in volcanic rocks which develop as a consequence of the flow of lava. The reason is the lavas are not completely homogeneous and different parts differ slightly in composition or volatile content or viscosity or degree of crystallization. So after eruption, when such lava flows, the dissimilar patches within the lava are drawn out as elongated streaks or bands or lines. Sometimes the already crystallized minerals are arranged parallel to the direction of the flow of lava. When such features differing in color, texture, etc. appear in volcanic rock, it indicates flowing of the parent lava mass prior to its solidification. The acidic lavas, which are more viscous, naturally possesses this flow structure more prominently. Now we will see the texture of each type of a rock. So first we will see the texture of plutonic rock. So the plutonic rocks cool under conditions of slow cooling, high pressure and presence of gases. As these conditions are favorable for crystallization, they are always hollow crystalline and never contain glass. Also, all crystals that are formed under these conditions attain roughly the same size, and plutonic rocks are therefore typically equigranular. The plutonic rocks are holocrystalline and equigranular, and this texture is described as granitic texture. They are generally medium grained and sometimes coarse grained. Though plutonic rocks are typically equigranular, they sometimes develop an inequigranular texture called porphyritic. This texture results when a magma cools slowly first and faster afterwards. So in this texture, larger crystals called phenocrysts are embedded in a ground mass of finer grain. So in the case of porphyritic plutonic rocks, though the rock as a whole shows porphyritic texture, the ground mass shows granitic texture typical of plutonic rocks. Now the texture of volcanic rock. The volcanic rocks cools at the surface under conditions of fast cooling, low pressure and absence of magmatic gases. As these hinder crystallization, it is never complete, and volcanic rocks are typically hemicrystalline, often with large amounts of glass. Also, the crystals that are formed do not grow to a large size, and volcanic rocks are typically aphanitic. However, the magma, before being outpoured as lava, cools for some time below the surface under plutonic conditions, and some crystals develop, the size and number of which depend upon the time allowed for crystallization before extrusion. This magma containing these crystals formed underground is then outpoured, and the major portion of the magma cools at the surface into aphanitic mass. The resulting rock then shows porphyritic texture with phenocrysts develop underground embedded in an aphanitic ground mass formed by cooling at the surface. Thus, as the cooling of volcanic rocks takes place under two different conditions, first slow and then fast, they are typically porphyritic. The texture of hypobasalt rocks. So the conditions of cooling of the hypobasalt rocks are intermediate between those of plutonic and volcanic rocks. Their textures are also therefore intermediate. They are generally fine-grained and quite often aphanitic. They may be holocrystalline or may contain small amounts of glass, but in addition to the usual granitic or porphyritic textures, the hypobasalt rocks also show certain special textures which develop under special conditions of cooling. The texture of sedimentary rocks. So the common texture of sedimentary rocks is clastic and arises out of the mode of deposition. The sediments are formed by deposition of individual grains one after the other. So these grains do not have common boundaries but are separated from each other by empty spaces, and every grain has only point contacts with its neighbors. This typical texture of sedimentary rocks is called clastic texture. The texture of metamorphic rock. The rocks produced by the different types of metamorphism have distinctive textures of their own, as textures of metamorphic rocks depends on the agent bringing about metamorphism. So when parallelly arranged directional minerals predominate, schistose structure is produced. The rocks showing schistose structure are called schist, as they reach in micas and amphiboles and pour in quartz and feldspars. The schistose rocks are also called foliated and the structure foliation. The schist split up easily along planes parallel to the extension of directional minerals. So these are called foliation planes or planes of schistosity. The gneiss structure is seen in rocks predominantly made up of quartz and feldspar and pour in directional minerals. So these rocks are called gneisses. So in this video I have tried to cover the more information about the petrology, the different types of rocks based on the geological classification, the subclassification of rock, their examples, the structure of rocks, the texture of rock, etc. Thank you.